Right. And we are live. So, welcome everybody. Today we have got the awesome Mr. Joel Dalton on the interview. Joel is kindly taken 30 minutes out of his day to discuss his experience working with us in the 1% so far. By all accounts, from my perspective, Joel's absolutely smashed it and is continuing to. But I want you to hear from the horse's mouth, not me. Right? That's why we're here. That's the exciting part. Before we jump off, Joel, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, a bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Joel. I'm 40 years old. I'm a co-founder of a print agency called Clone. So I'm a business owner outside of work. I've got three young children. My life's quite busy. Yeah, does that stack up as a intro?
Yeah, that's stacks up nicely. And I think probably a lot of guys here watching this nodding heads and sort of going, yep, I can relate to that. Busy job, lots of kids, all of the fun stuff. That being said, let's kind of dig into why you decided to work with us and I guess your journey through this process. So let's rewind a couple of months into the past. I think Joel, you'd seen a few of my bits on LinkedIn, on social media. We had a little bit of a back and forward on message. You decided to reach out and have a chat. What was going on back then that made you decide to reach out and work with a coach or somebody like me?
Well, I just turned 40, which I think is a bit of a milestone for a lot of people to go through, isn't it? And you kind of start reevaluating where you're at against maybe where you thought you'd be across different pillars of your life. And I think for me, work was going pretty well, has been for some time, but there were still kind of question marks over other areas. And yeah, a lot of your content actually, the bit that really interested me and kind of, I suppose, got me hooked was seeing, some of the videos that you were posting about how people behave around their children, particularly young children, and being present with them and not being glued to your emails or your phone all the time. And I think that hit me pretty hard. And I was kind of I've been aware of that before, and so that's what kind of piqued my interest. And yeah, so I thought I'd reach out and just find out a bit more about it.
And I think what you described there again, not a dissimilar narrative. I think I'm nearly 40. I'm 40 in January, and I think for a lot of guys, it's a bit of a not a wake up call is maybe the wrong word, but it's technically the middle of your life, right? And you're like, oh fuck, right? What's it all about? Am I showing up and doing the best for myself and everyone else? And I think in amongst the busy life with work, business, family, whatever else, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's any one area that's specifically on fire, but it's just recognizing that am I showing up and being my best in these important parts of my life, specifically around the family piece. And I think often, not necessarily intentionally, we can get into ruts and patterns of behavior where we're not as present, we're not as focused as we would like to be. And it kind of comes from a well intentioned place because you want to support your family, you want to provide and be successful. But the net result of that is end up putting yourself down the pecking order, and then everybody else ends up getting a diluted version of you as a byproduct of that. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does, for sure. And I think when we spoke originally, I wasn't really sure that, I couldn't put my finger on what it was that I was even looking to achieve. I think there was just, I just felt like I was spread a bit too thin across a few areas. And yeah, so yeah, I completely agree with what you say there. And I think that was the bit that's kind of piqued my interest, but there was definitely more underlying that, that I needed.
Okay. Well, let's fast forward then to kind of. So you reached out, we had a chat, we decided like, yep, let's do a bit of work together. You've now come through the process, the blueprint, and we've actually decided to continue into the next phase as well. Well, let's talking about the initial engagement. Like, what have been your, I guess, key successes, and that you've achieved having come through that initial process so far?
Some of it was kind of a bit of self-realization of what I was and wasn't doing well, and I guess another part of it was just believing a bit more that I could do certain things. So how active I am during the day. I've got a pretty sedentary job. I sit in an office most of the day, and around that, I've also got young kids at home, which demand time in the morning and in the evening as well. So it's kind of difficult, I suppose, to fit stuff in. But it was just reevaluating all of that and thinking, well, what can I do? How can I fit it in? And how am I going to make it work? And kind of changing my mindset a little bit from I can't possibly do that to, well, how can I do it? So that was quite important. Yeah, I guess just really fully embracing it. I mean, I started it at the most cliche time of year, mid-January, I think, when everyone's feeling a little bit like they need to do something about their lives after just, inhaling mince pies for a month. But so, yeah, it kind of timed well. And it was quite easy to get into it initially.
And I guess one of the reasons, well, in fact, like, it wasn't actually your burning bridge when you came in, the physical side. You're like, yeah, I want to lose a bit of weight, tighten up, but it was more the sort of bigger picture. Existential is probably too strong a word, but like the family piece, how am I showing up? But then actually, I think you said, and you related to that, having come through the process and done some work that's elicited a good physical change, you realise, well, actually, this is a core part of it as well, and how I show up. And actually, if I'm taking care of this, it's not the only factor by any stretch. It's just a part of it. Well, I think it probably plays more of a part than you think, especially when you start to see some progress around that, right?
How all of the things within our lives, from the way that we move and the way that we regard at work or at home and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, I've done personal training in the past for like years on end, actually, and this isn't that. I mean, obviously there's physical parts to it which have been really.
Sorry, Joel. I think the connection broke up a little bit there. I got a bit of, you were talking about, there's a physical component to it. You've done PT in the past, and that's kind of been okay, but it's not just that. And I think what you were getting to is saying that it's like it was looking at the whole lot more holistically. I'm taking a leap from what you said, but it kind of cut out a little bit, so I couldn't quite hear what you said.
Yeah, that's right. I think in the past, I think I've just been focused on one area, so perhaps the physical mainly. But actually, that doesn't help you with your mindset. It doesn't help you with, I suppose, confidence and self assurance. We all get periods in our lives, particularly in this industry, I want to say, but we all get periods in our lives where we start questioning whether we're doing the right thing, or if we're any good at what we profess to be good at. And so, yeah, I think the whole thing ties together really well with this program, and just seeing some of the other people that are on it, because obviously there's the group element to it as well. Having other people kind of going through the process at the same time is really quite valuable.
Yeah, I think well, I think I'm biased, right? I run group coaching programs, and I, so of course I'm going to say this, but there is real power in a group, and I think sometimes maybe not you, Joel, the royal you, right? One doesn't necessarily recognise how powerful that is, but if you hear others and the shared problems, but also shared successes, and I think often because what we see is everyone's veneer, outside exterior on LinkedIn or Instagram, it's all great. you don't really know what's actually going on. And actually, when you peel the lid back a bit and you see a group of other guys who are in one domain quite successful, doing well, putting their hand up, going, I find this stuff tricky. I'm struggling with time. I'm not showing up as my best. But then there are the same guys with the same demands and stresses as you, taking ownership and working through that, not being perfect. I believe it's a really empowering place, because you realise, oh, fuck, it's not just me versus the world here. There's other guys who are successful that find this stuff difficult. But then there's very much a way for us to adapt that. And hearing that collectively has got a lot of power. And I like to think I'm a decent coach and I can help give you what you want. But on the flip side, but on the flip side, hearing others in their journey, that perspective, I think, sometimes can be more powerful than the direct coaching interaction. Does that resonate or make sense?
Yeah, it does, definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think men aren't very good at sharing, where they're at, I suppose, are they? And so actually it's quite liberating to hear a group of people being a bit more sort of vulnerable with each other. The other thing I think that men, the battle that men have, I don't know, the weight of the world is sometimes on their shoulders. And I think, being able to kind of, just be a bit accountable to a group of people that can kind of help you through it is really good. And obviously, all the benefits that people are going through, you kind of share those successes as well as the kind of more difficult. So, yeah, completely.
And what would you say then, having now come through this process, and we've looked at a framework and a structure of where we're at, and then now we're sort of focusing on some other bigger picture goals to work on, and we're continuing on that journey, Joel. But like, as you stand today, what I guess are you most pleased with so far, having come through the process? What you're most, I guess, pleased or proud of right now?
There's a few key things that I feel like I've learned. One is that I actually posted about it this morning on someone else's post on LinkedIn, that I previously thought that people that kind of work out all the time and get stuff done all the time are just motivated consistently. And I think what I've learned is that it's not necessarily the case. They're just more disciplined. So I think I've learned to kind of reframe the fact that I don't want to do certain things sometimes, but doing them anyway is the real sort of powerful bit. If they're important to you and they're things that mean something to you. And yeah, I guess, I've lost like 10 kilos. So I'm walking around a bit freer and a bit easier. I'm definitely fitter, as you've been great benefits. And I just think the other thing is, which I can't really get across enough, is this program isn't about do this, do that, and don't kind of ask any questions. It's more like guiding principles on how you should approach stuff. So that's the kind of coaching part of it, I suppose. So I guess the lessons that I've learned through it will be things that I continue for the rest of my life, or as long as I'm disciplined enough to do so.
That last point there, John, I think that it's great for me to hear that, because I think for me that's what real, actual, if you're coaching someone, be that business, be that personally combined, like we're talking about, whatever it is, actually what you want to do as a coach is empower someone so they can thrive within whatever given domain we're talking about. And with what I do is kind of like life, work, family, the bigger picture stuff. And so you being wedded to some process where you've got a set amount of things you must do, and you have to just batter yourself to do it or be shouted at to achieve that. That might get one or two arbitrary set of results in a specific domain, but it's not going to empower you long term to have any autonomy or sovereignty within your own life, because you're dependent on this very specific framework. What you described there, is about having fundamental principles you can apply to what life presents you with. Well, like you said, well, then ultimately that's more empowering going forward, because you can run with this now and for the future forever. It's not just do these three things perfectly, otherwise you're fucked, because that's as fragile as having nothing in my regard. So I think for me, what you've described there is, I think you articulated it better than me, but I think that's the real key to any kind of coaching engagement, really. It's like, if you're going to do something, there's maybe more work you want to do because you recognize there's levels to this, which is exciting. But like whatever point you want to get to, you should be able to run with that yourself. Otherwise, for me, the process hasn't delivered what it's set out to do or what it's meant to do.
Yeah, so sorry, I probably missed that question at the end there. The connection was a bit bad, but I think there's a really good bit in the program, without giving the game away, which is about like sticking or twisting. So are you going to continue doing, what what's working for you at the moment, or are you going to change it up? And if so, why? And you kind of, you kind of justify that, and it kind of builds in that, I guess autonomy really, and making your own decisions based on the kind of data that you're collecting along the way. And it's totally empowering, because it means that you get confident in making changes to what you're doing, whilst
well, exactly that, because, and something I talk about in the program a lot, and also in my social media, which is this sort of idea that life's always going to slap you around, and it's going to be constantly coming at you with work, with family, with whatever, and shit things, good things, bad things. It's just constant. And for me, the empowered place to operate is you being able to choose to react the best way you can within that. And there's a framework or blueprint of habits and behaviours that can serve you within all of that. But like, they need to ebb and flow and flex with the demands of life and your specific circumstances at any given time. And what I think you're talking about there, Joel, is that sort of, I guess, flexibility to allow this stuff to sort of run out consistently. And that stick or twist or whatever it is, it's like, given what's happening, where I'm at and what I want to achieve, what do I need to do? And that is actually quite dynamic. I mean, everything doesn't change all the time, but week to week, day to day, so that's always going to be kind of a moving feast. And the art really with all of this stuff is being able to, from yourself, roll with that as it goes. And the fact that you're articulating that is for me is great, because it shows that like we're getting you to a place where you're in charge versus life just slapping you around. Because you can't control everything in life, because that way madness lies as well. But like controlling your reaction to what you can, for me, is the powerful place to operate from.
Yeah, completely. I mean, one example recently is this time of year is kind of renowned for it, but there's a lot of socializing, a lot of like work events and things happening, and how do you kind of amend what you're doing outside of that to kind of counteract some of the negative results which might come from it, so drinking more, eating more, all that kind of jazz. And so I think it's worked and it's served its purpose, because I'm still tracking quite well, considering I'm now like Jan, Feb, March, April, May, 4 months in, and I haven't been derailed by things like Easter and all the bank holidays and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, and actually, they're fun things that should be part of life. It shouldn't be like, oh my God, I've got this thing coming up, I'm scared about it. Why? It's a fucking bank holiday. You should be able to enjoy yourself. Likewise, Easter. But then if you've got a framework that works, you go, you roll into it or not. Well, look, Joel, it's been a pleasure chatting. I think the success you've had, where you're at, is credit to you. Yes, you've been in the coaching process, and as I said, we're working on some other cool stuff, but it's all down to you ultimately. And so I think anyone watching this, hopefully they've got a lot out of what you said, and that whole piece around self-autonomy, being empowered. And I think that all comes from you, because you came through the process, did the work, and the results are where we are today. And you've lost a good chunk of change. But for me, the exciting part of that is that's happened as a byproduct of us making changes to how you show up and how you react that are embedded in the working now and longer term, so it's great. Before we get off, let's say someone sat watching this, they've maybe seen some of my content, or they're just thinking, maybe they were feeling a bit like you were a few months back, but they're not sure about talking to a coach or engaging with someone like me in a process like this. What would you say to someone like that who's kind of knows that they need to do something, but they're on the fence?
I'd say, if you're on the fence, value is a very subjective thing, I want to say, but for me, I've found tremendous value from this program. I've done
Thank you. That's a pretty good endorsement if ever there was one. So thank you, Joel. I appreciate it. And you're a prime example, right? 3 kids, run a business, loads going on. And sometimes the narrative, if I speak to gents, maybe now is not the right time or a bit too busy. That's the point. That is life. You're always going to be too busy. Now is never going to be the right time. And for me, the process is about looking at your life as it is and adapting that, not let's do a load of crazy crap in the middle of it. And that speaks to what you just said there. So thank you. Joel, it's been a pleasure working with you so far, and I'm loving continuing what we do. I think this conversation has been really insightful, and hopefully anyone's watched it got a lot out of it. If anyone is watching, they're interested in having a chat about how we can help get your results like Joel has, drop me a note in the comments or a DM. Joel, thank you, mate. You're a legend. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, guys, and have a great rest of your week. Cheers, gents. Thank you. Take care.
Cheers.